Hi. So just a little video about maintenance, banjo maintenance, or maintaining your banjo, and things that you might want to know or find interesting to know, or that are good to know about your banjo. So, do you have to do anything to your banjo when you have it? Or is it all down to just leaving it into your luthier or someone that you deal with for repairs and stuff? Well, there's some things you can do, and some things that are best left to a luthier or professional or an expert. So what can you do to maintain it? Well, and we keep it clean, obviously. Keep your banjo clean. Be aware of, like, when you're playing, your hands will sweat. You'll see tarnish on things like metalwork and stuff like that, and a lot of it is down to that. You sweat your wrists here or whatever. It's a good idea to have a cloth, lint-free cloth in your case, and when you're practicing, and wipe the instrument and stuff like that. The strings as well, wipe the strings, because again, they'll last longer if you do that. You can get string lubricants and cleaners and stuff like that. You can have one of those. They come usually with a kind of roll-on antiperspirant thing on the top of them, and gradual release of a fluid, a lubricant, and something that preserves the strings tone and stuff for a bit longer. So if you get them, rub at that, and then wipe off of a cloth, wipe down where your hand has been on the instrument and stuff like that, and the head, just to keep it free of sweat and keep your strings right and keep it clean. That's one thing you do and can do. As regards repairs and stuff like that, well, obviously you have to be able to change strings. I wouldn't call that maintenance as such, but if you break a string, for someone who isn't used to an instrument, or you're at the beginning stages like that, it may seem like maintenance. You may just not have a clue what to do if you break a string. So I've explained that in my video about strings anyway. So yes, of course, you have to be able to change a string. Other than that, your bridge, well, is the bridge, you could just think, that's it. The bridge on a banjo is movable, so it's not just like take for granted. The bridge on a banjo is movable. On guitars and other instruments, sometimes they're set into the instrument, and you can't really interfere with that. On a banjo, if you were rough with that or you hit it and that goes out, your intonation and your tuning is off. So that has to be in the right position, and you should be careful of it, not hit off it, not move it, and know if it does get moved, what you have to do to put it back. And what that is you've got to find the position here, that when you play say all the strings have to be the same, so this has to be level, the bridge has to be level. So when you hit the first string, and that's an E, we go up to the 12th fret, and you fret it there, and you play that should be an E also. So it's the octave E, the octave higher than the open E. So E. If that's an F sharp, an F, an E flat, or halfway between, or slightly down when you put your tuner on it, this is in the wrong position. If it's sharp, so if it's veering up towards F or higher, the bridge is too far forward. You need to move it back, very small movements at a time, until you check it again and see is it right, and keep moving it very, very small. I mean, you're talking about half a millimetre or a metre, depending on how far it's out. I mean, if it's up here and it's way sharp, it's this an F sharp or a G, you're going to have to go back a bit. This is, it's going to be around here. If it's up here, it's definitely not right. If it's right down at the tailpiece, it's not right. So it'll be roughly around there. So when you check your tuning, if it's out, if it's sharp, it's too far forward. Move back small amounts until this is a perfect E, the same as that. That's assuming your banjo is made correctly, and your frets and everything are right, and the neck isn't warped or something like that. And you do that with all the strings then, because if this was at a slant, your E could be right here, but when the slant goes over, then your A would be sharp. So it needs to be level here, that all of the strings are. So your 4 strings are perfect octaves on the 12th fret. And then when you get that out, you could put a slight little permanent marker thing there at exactly where it goes or something like that if you didn't want to go through that whole process again. That's very common. And then that's another thing, that's your bridge. Your action, which is how far the strings are up off the fretboard. The fretboard is the wooden, or here where the frets are, the top of the neck. So how far the strings are, what the gap is here, and that's a very, very important and a very, very specialised thing. And really, for to have that set up right, you're talking about going to a luthier. Now, could you get a slightly lower bridge? Generally speaking, your bridge is a 1/2 inch. That's the height of it from the skin up. So the height is generally a 1/2 inch or 5/8 of an inch. They're the two standard ones. And if your action's slightly high and you've got a 1/2 inch bridge on, you could get a 7/16. You may not be able to come across one. You might be able to get one, and that might do the job. You could sand down or slot down the grooves in the bridge yourself. Again, you need to do that and do them all even and level and stuff like that. It's not the best idea, really. You should get your action set up properly by a luthier. But if it was, say you had your action was very high and you measured your bridge and it was a 5/8, it may just have the wrong bridge on it. And if you got a 1/2 inch bridge, it could make it much better and playable. So that's one thing. If it's high up at the nut end, it's very tricky because the nut isn't as easy replaced as a bridge. And if you start sanding down or slotting out these slots for the strings on the nut and you go too far, you can't go back. Again, I would recommend, if your action is bad, I'd recommend getting it set up properly with a good luthier. So that's your action. Bridges, as regards quality, there doesn't, or maybe now there is a bit more, but there didn't tend to be a lot of focus on the quality of a bridge, and they can make a difference. Now, if you've got a good banjo, you'll notice it more. It's subtle, possibly you could say, depending on how into the banjo you are, how long you're playing, stuff like that. The difference between getting like a €5 or €6 poor quality bridge, that are mass produced and stuff, it probably won't be slotted right for a start anyway. So the difference between that and getting a good bridge that costs maybe 30, 40, 50 euro, it will make a difference to the tone of your banjo. And if you've got a good banjo, put a good bridge on it. Even if you're finding it hard to notice the difference, it is improving the sound. There's no question about that. Cheap, mass-produced bridges won't have the same quality or get the same tone. Your tone is travelling through the bridge. Generally speaking, they're made of maple with an ebony top. And if you buy one and you're replacing it, if you're getting it from a good bridge maker, you can tell them what gauge strings you're using and make sure it's slotted for those gauge strings, because if the slots are too narrow, the string won't sit right in them and vibrate properly. So that's another thing about strings. Generally the nut is not a movable piece, like it's part of the banjo. It is, of course, it does slot out, but I mean, generally speaking, you don't play around with it the same as you would with bridges. Maintenance, head, the plastic head years ago was a skin, but so that can be, if that can stretch over time and become softer, you might notice the tone of your banjo going a little bit dead or soft. You can do that yourself. Take off the resonator. Usually banjo comes with a little what do you call it, the little tool that has a a socket end on it, and these have a little nut on the back, and generally speaking it comes with one, and you take this off, and what you do is, if it's a little bit loose, you don't go over the top. You'll start back here on this one, say, and you'll do a quarter of a turn, and then go to the opposing one here and do a quarter, go back to the next one and that, and keep going around until you get around, and see what it's like then. And if it's okay, leave it. If it's still a little bit soft, do the same again. Don't go, a full turn or two, and don't do a turn here and a quarter of a turn here. Do it in even and diagonal and work around, and you can tighten up your skin. That's something you can do. The tailpiece, it's not much you can do maintenance wise, but the tailpiece shouldn't be down on the skin. You should have an 1/8 of an inch or something like that. The tailpiece should bear down on the strings, and keep a bit of tension on them. And this one here, and this is an old permanent banjo, and this is a particular patent of a tailpiece of theirs, the original tailpiece, and it's got a little turn screw thing here on it with a piece of metal here that's wedged down on it, and as you turn it tightens. So you can put that down more or less, but it probably about an 1/8 of an inch. It shouldn't be down on the skin because it's going to interfere with the resonance of the banjo. But once that's set, there isn't really maintenance as such on it. So that's it really. Maintenance other than that, or your tuners, your replacement of stuff like that, or setting up action, or major things like that. If you have to refinish or stuff, keep your banjo clean, keep it good, look after it. Don't put it in extreme heats. Never put it beside radiators or in sunlight, or really put it out in the shed in sub-zero temperatures or stuff like that. Keep it in its case. Keep it in a regular temperature, house temperature, not beside fires, anything like that, extremes, and stuff like that. If you're traveling with your banjo, always have it well packed in the case, a case that fits it well, stuff like that, and keep it clean. And for more serious stuff, go to a luthier and get your action set up properly, or repairs done if you have a crack, if you've whatever, don't mess around with it yourself. That's about all I can think of for maintenance, so I hope that helps. Thank you, bye.